Hey guys, before we begin, I just wanted to say that I have actually like a super important announcement. The other day, Johnny actually reached out to me, and yeah, he let me know he's not really into cartoons anymore, or animation for that matter, so he's going to be stepping down from co-hosting the podcast. It's been a busy week, so I haven't really been able to find like a substitute for the time being. So I'm actually going to be hosting this one on my own. And we're going to be finding a good replacement for Johnny. I'll let you know on like the Twitter and stuff. It's going to be good. It's going to totally work out. But that being said, actually today we do still have a special guest. He's actually a Canadian boy who has always been a mega animation superfan, who up until recently co-hosted a weekly cartoon-centric guest podcast. He worked on this until recently realizing he doesn't actually have a passion for animation anymore, and also that Samurai Jack is not good. Welcoming in Johnny.
I hate you. Why did I ever agree to do this fucking show? Okay, yeah, hi, it's me.
Hey,
I'm
guest.
here for the first time now, I guess.
So do you have like a movie in mind that, or maybe even cartoon show that you wanted to talk about this week?
Well, I did bring to you Hotel Transylvania in hopes of we were trying to find something that would be a little like lower key and not as big of a like not as much room to cover as like if we were to just pick, you know, doing like a full Dexter's Lab episode or something right now where it's just us having some fun. And I suggested Hotel Transylvania because I think these movies are like super underrated for what they are. And I know that you're a big Adam Sandler fan and a big Selena Gomez fan.
That I am.
And I was like, this seems like something that we'd both already be relatively positive on.
Yeah.
And you hadn't seen this before watching it, well, last night preparing for this, correct?
Yeah, so I've never, and for some reason I've just never watched Hotel Transylvania. I just kind of always assumed for some reason that it was one of those mid-tier, I don't know, like filler animated movies. You know what I mean? So,
which I think is what it gets played off a lot as, and
does.
there's certain elements to it where I can definitely see where it's like, oh yeah, it definitely falls into some of these tropes and some of these like pitfalls where, and I think a big part of that is the trailers, because I think the trailers really heavily, like if you're to watch any of the trailers for these movies, they show way more of the like
bad jokes,
mid-tier bad jokes where it's just like, oh look, a monster farted, instead of like any of the really well done character animation or like, no, you go.
No, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say I remember specifically the first movie's trailer had a lot, like I think it had a lot to do with like, there's one scene where, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but the human like is listening to music and then he gives the earbuds to Dracula, and then it's like LMFAO playing or something like that.
Yeah.
And they leaned into it so heavy in the trailer, I think. And I was like, this looks terrible. And that joke was for like 5 seconds in the movie. So
it's like the one recurring joke that I'm like, yeah, we didn't need this, and this like dates it super hard. But other than that, like it's a extremely well animated movie that uses a lot of incredible animation principles that we don't get to see CGI movies do.
Yeah.
And I think it's really special for that. I informed you a little bit beforehand, there's a whole journey to this movie being made. So we're going to take it right back to the start of Sony Pictures Animation. Do you know what Sony Pictures Animation's first movie was?
I do not.
In September of 2006, they put out Open Season.
Oh.
And do we have opinions on Open Season?
Not really.
No, yeah. Not many people
I'll let
do.
You exist.
Yeah. So they go Open Season. It's September of 2006. Surf's Up in June of 2007.
This is weird.
Do we have opinions on Surf's Up? It's really weird looking through this.
That's really weird. Surf's Up, didn't it have...
That's the penguin one they're surfing.
So, I'm not sure if the
sequel
original
had John Cena in it.
Yeah, I was about to say, the sequel had a bunch of like, wrestlers voice acting,
for
right?
no real reason. But yeah. So these are both like very mid animated movies. I think we can agree on, yeah?
Yeah, like they kind of just filled in spots for me.
Then we get Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Which
Great.
is
Love it.
that's one of the
Fantastic.
best of that era.
Yeah, launches Lord and Miller, who end up going on to do Spider-Verse, coming off of Clone High, coming off of
Everything else.
well, yeah, they did a bunch
What,
of work and
Lego?
a ton of shit. They go to Lego Movie after this. Yeah, that's their like in between. So they're
Yeah.
like, this launches them. They have the Smurfs movies, like the live action ones that take place in New York with Neil Patrick Harris, I want to say.
Sure.
Yeah. So
I haven't
still
watched
not
them,
good.
so
Yeah. So their batting average is low, is what I'm trying to make sure to set up here.
yeah.
Then they have Arthur Christmas in
Okay.
2011 also, which exists.
Wait,
They have
Arthur
Pirates.
Christmas. Hold up. Arthur Christmas. I've never heard of that. I'm looking
You've
at it
never
right
heard of
now. I
this?
don't think I've ever seen that before.
Yeah, you're not missing much.
Okay.
And then
All
they
right,
have
I'm sorry, go
Pirates
on.
Band of Misfits, which I can stand by as a very wholesome movie.
Pirates
That's
Band of Misfits.
It's a stop motion one. Pirates.
Oh yeah.
The-
Okay.
You
yeah,
see
yeah,
the
yeah,
Twitter
yeah,
gif
yeah.
all the time of the monkey
Definitely.
doing that, but yeah. So they're like not nailing it with a lot of their movies. And Hotel Transylvania comes out in 2012. I want you to guess how long this movie had been in production. 2012 is when it comes out, September 28th, 2012.
I really love. I don't know. I don't want to like. What do you got for me? I can't even picture. How long did it take?
So it's based off of a book. There was comedy writer Todd Durham. I don't offhand know. I'm like reading bits off the wiki and also just what I know. I don't exactly know what he's done. He wrote
Moby Dick.
the book of the same name. Yes, he did. He did write Moby Dick.
Yeah.
But after that, he wrote Hotel Transylvania. So he wrote this book, and then he also created the Bible to the franchise of several films. So he came in with a pitch that he was like, hey, Sony. Basically, his pitch was, you can make money off of this.
Yeah. So like the production
he-
Bible or what did he?
Yeah, the production Bible.
Oh wow.
But
that's
it
cool.
was not just a production Bible like for a cartoon where it's like, hey, here's the base idea,
Yeah.
we can go off this. It was literally, he's like, here's where you can make several franchise movies. Here's your television series. Here's your video games. Here's your books. Here's some merchandising. Here's an actual hotel chain and a theme park ride. He came in with all of that before anything was made.
That's nuts.
Where he's just like, this is what I want to make. That was in 2006.
Uh-huh.
And this movie doesn't get made for another 6 years and goes through 6 different directors.
That's wild.
So-
You're gonna see a recurring theme for me at least is that this movie has zero right to be as good as it is. But
Yeah.
go on.
So it is from 2006. Anthony Stucci and David Feiss were the first two connected to it, and they were the open season guys, and they eventually did stuff on the box trolls. So they're like, this is Sony like pulling from their already like owned group
Yeah.
of people basically. And then it goes to Jill Colton in 2008. So after 2 years of trying to get this movie made, they give it to another girl who was someone who also just more of the open season team. According to her Wikipedia filmography, she's listed under Surf's Up as special thanks.
That's
I don't know what that means, but it's like
Bro.
open season. It has director and story. Boog and Elliot's Midnight Bun Run. Don't know what that is.
Oh god.
Director and writer. Surf's Up. Special thanks.
That's what I'm
So-
saying. Like it's so you've never. I feel like it's never exciting whenever a movie that you're excited to see coming out has director changes. So
and when it has
it's never
6
a
of
good
them over the
sign.
course of 6 years.
And then also like people that are in the running created spin-offs to open season. It's just not looking
Yeah.
too hot for that movie.
Yeah, literally one of the directors here, because like on the Wikipedia, all of them are, in blue because you can click on it and go see their pages. One of the people they had to direct on here, Todd Wilderman, literally no link to it.
Yeah, he was
There's
just
no-
he was a janitor over at
Yeah, they were like, we'll take anyone to get this movie made because we want to start a franchise, and God, we have nothing.
they're like, we honestly just
eventually-
want Adam Sandler to be in our studio.
Yeah, exactly. So by February 2011, they end on Genndy Tartakovsky off of Samurai Jack, off of Symbionic Titan, off of the Star Wars The Clone Wars 2003 series. So he is well-known animation director,
Yeah.
has not done a movie before, and they're like, all right, we're going to land on Genndy. In February of 2011, they announce it. And by the time they announce it, everyone's given up on this movie because for the past 6 years, they've been seeing Sony being like, all right, we've got a director, Hotel Transylvania is happening. And it never amounted to anything. Everyone who was on the project left. They kept getting either them leaving or Sony kicking them off. And this was one of the movies that the Sony leaks in, was it 2014? When there was like the big Sony hack and they got all the like the emails out.
Was it 2014? I don't remember. I have no
Something
idea.
around there. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If you don't and you're listening, long story short, someone hacked Sony and got a ton of emails from inside Sony out into the world. And in a bunch of these emails, you could see like production notes and stuff being sent back alongside things that were much more like crucial and important for Sony to be like, oh shit, we can't have this information out. There was just like weird little emails where you'd go back and forth and you'd see. Apparently Sony was doing a lot of fighting against this movie whenever it was the directors who were trying to get it made. So there was always little like squabbles and the whole, you know, a bunch of the stuff in here where you're like, oh man, this does date it, like them being like, oh well, can we have LMFAO in it because like the kids like LMFAO, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Feels very, oh, that was Sony Animation being like, we have no faith in making a movie. So we need to load it with shit that's gonna date ourselves.
I mean, to
around
be
the
fair,
time when
LMFAO was like king. Like those were
Oh,
about
they
to,
were.
They were about to be indicted into being presidents of the United States.
they were just based off of numbers alone, they were like, well, we gotta, yeah. Like they were huge, but also like around this time, like Pixar's putting out Wall-E.
Yeah.
Pixar's putting out Ratatouille.
You don't remember the
like they're
the hit LMFAO song that was in Wall-E?
Yeah, you don't remember that Kesha 3-minute dance sequence at the end of Ratatouille? Yeah, like so this movie's whole production, super weird, but they end up on Genndy Tartakovsky, and why I picked this movie is because he takes all of these 2D principles of like a lot more squash and stretch and all of the things that make 2D animation very unique and apply it to 3D, because Pixar is like the king of 3D animation, obviously. But their whole thing is that a lot of them are pretty stiff and they don't like bend a lot, which makes sense when you look at like, that's the first Toy Story. They make Toy Story and they're like, well, we're going to do a CG movie about toys because at this point all CG can do is make it look like plastic. Which is why if you look at like the humans or the dog in the original Toy Story, it's
They're
like
terrifying.
yeah, monstrous plastic looking creatures. So we end up, that just kind of carries throughout CG, and that's like, there are certain movies where like the character designs you get a lot more out of it. Like Incredibles has super strong character design. Like Finding Nemo looks gorgeous, but a lot of these movies don't animate super creatively, if that makes sense. The physical like, way that the things move.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I think before like since 3D animation's still kind of relatively new, I think before they started to get stylistic choices to doing like human animation, I feel like they first like started, you know what I mean? Like they started it, tried to make it look not terrifying, and then now we start seeing like different like
it's starting to get more creative, but it's still, the big thing with CG is always how realistic can we make it. And like at the time of recording this, Toy Story 4 is like 2 months out, and any promotional image or any trailers for that, you are looking at those models and it's insane. They look so like you can see all of the little like tiny bits of like chipped paint, and like it looks terrifyingly realistic to a point where I'm like, I cannot believe that someone created this and made it like move in this environment.
Yeah.
But also I know Toy Story 4, they're all gonna move like the real world. Like everything that those toys do, you could do with a real toy.
Yeah.
And it like works well in those movies. Like in all these trailers that what's the Canadian motorcycle dude that's played by Keanu Reeves in this one, where his whole thing is that he's like one of the posable action figures where he's got like 16 joints or whatever. So he only moves by those joints, and they have a lot of fun with moving him by those joints. But at no point in that movie are they going to have him like be scared and then he's going to stretch like twice his size and then like snap back down, which they do a lot in this movie. And that brings us to why I think, well, we can just start from the beginning, right? Yes, Are we good there? This is like we've kind of covered the production
I'm down.
of it.
All right, in the beginning, Adam Sandler was born.
Yes.
And that man was perfect.
More or less.
And as he grew up, he remained perfect. And then he looked to the perfect grill,
What?
Selena Gomez,
Okay.
and said, Selena, when they started production on this movie, you were just hitting puberty. But now, I think you're old enough to be a voice actor and take the animation world by surprise.
Gonna interject there with something, actually.
Yes.
Not what they originally planned. It was supposed to be Miley Cyrus.
Really?
Yeah, it was supposed to be Miley Cyrus, and she was originally cast as Mavis, like announced cast as Mavis. She withdrew to focus on other projects, so she was replaced by Selena Gomez. Those other projects was her reinvigorating her music career. So she was like, well, it's Hotel Transylvania or Wrecking Ball, I guess.
Yeah.
And then she made that whole album. But during all of that, she decided she drops out of Hotel Transylvania. They bring in Selena Gomez instead. And
Do you like Selena Gomez, or would you prefer seeing Wrecking Ball stylized?
I think this is probably the better version.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I'm thinking
and not just
she
because
probably
Selena
gets
Gomez
more
is
of
my
that,
favorite
like-
human being.
Well, yeah, that's valid. But I think that Mavis like really shines in this movie. She's a super likable character, and she's very fun the whole time. And I think that the voice acting does help that. Like, she has that very like wholesome, good intentioned person
sure.
the whole time. And I feel like Miley's delivery probably would have been different for a lot of this, and I don't know if we would have gotten as much.
I'm a vampire, y'all.
Blah blah blah. But yeah, so I think that Jesus Christ, what a dumb show we do. But yeah, I think that decision panned out super well for them, and it does. You were kind of on a right track there though, with Adam Sandler just being like, "Hey, I'm gonna bring in my team of people for this movie," because that is most of the cast of this movie is his whole gang of hooligans that he makes all his movies with.
Can I make a little hot take?
Yeah, sure.
Similar to the likes of almost every other Adam Sandler movie, I really don't think this movie would be half as good as it is with Adam Sandler in it. I think...
You mean without Adam Sandler in it?
Yeah, like it wouldn't be as good if it didn't
Yeah.
have Adam Sandler.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I think he does such a good job. I don't know.
Well, they actually... apparently, the original design of Dracula changed when they heard how Adam Sandler does his Dracula.
Really?
Like, they decided to make it a much more, well, animated. I think it works so well for this movie because he's such an over-the-top animated Dracula that his design, they decided to make him play much bigger, so he's got, like, the big broad shoulders and the big long face that they can contort as much as they want whenever they're having him react to different things, and he'll get scared of something and he'll like crunch down, and he'll get like angry and he'll like grow twice as tall, and he gets the shoulders get a little bit wider and turned, and there's a lot of really good he's like putty. They just like warp him as much as they can, and it totally works with the voice for a lot of that.
Keep in mind, this is when he's on a hot streak. You know what I mean? Like year before, he just released Jack and Jill.
Oh,
like, he was ready to slam dunk after slam dunk.
Well, they have kind of on that chain. There was like a bit of an era where Adam Sandler was trying to bring Andy Samberg into the light.
Yeah.
And that's why Andy Samberg is Jonathan throughout this movie. Is because he did... What was the movie that they did together before this?
Boy.
That's My Boy.
I think, was it before this?
Was it?
It came out the same
I thought
year.
it was. Okay. So yeah, around this era,
Yeah.
he's doing movies where he's like, I want Andy Samberg to be the billing beside Adam Sandler so we can like pull this kid up. Alongside there, we have Kevin James as Frankenstein.
Beautiful.
Yeah, really good. Steve Buscemi as Wayne the Werewolf.
Again.
Really good.
Very good.
Molly Shannon as Wanda, who is the werewolf's wife.
Okay.
I'm like 90% sure. David Spade as Griffin the Invisible Man. Real
Again,
good.
Fantastic.
Real good. John Lovitz as Quasimodo.
I think that was a good. I liked that.
I like Quasimodo.
Yeah.
He's ridiculously animated. Every time he's in a scene, they have him snap around. He's so gross, but it works so well.
It's so good.
And then for this movie, they have Murray the Mummy as CeeLo Green, which is a weird choice.
Not
partially
really. I
because
don't think it's like that's not like Adam Sandler's not rolling with CeeLo Green.
no,
You know what I mean?
think it was because originally they wanted to have the Mummy be a bigger part of. They wanted a big dance number again at the end, where it would be the Mummy, and then the Mummy had kids that would also. They wanted to have a big song. So they were like, oh, we'll get CeeLo Green because he'll write some pop song that can be all over the place for September of 2012 was their goal. But I assume that was one of the things where Genndy was like, we don't need another dance number. And then they cut it. So
they literally had one right at the end, right?
Yeah, they did. But the intention was to have, like, I think instead of it just be the one song, it would be another one also sung by CeeLo Green. But after this movie... they replace him with oh man, where is it? I have it written down. Keegan-Michael Key.
Oh.
Yeah, right?
Really?
That makes sense. I think that's really good.
I've only watched this. This one. Dude, I think that's that might be a better fit, and I haven't even watched the rest of them yet.
Yeah, I've watched 2. I plan on watching 3 very soon now because after watching this first one, I'm just like reminded of how much I like them, and I think it's on like Crave, I want to say, which is a Canadian streaming service. I don't know where it is for you guys, but point is, I have access to it, so I will be watching that soon. And I think that Keegan-Michael Key is a really good fit for this character, who is the one kind of weird one in this movie. Like, I feel like they all kind of have paved out the like bits for all the characters, because it's a bit heavy movie.
Yeah, very bit
like
heavy.
in a good way, but I like it a lot because a lot of them are very funny. But the Mummy's the one that's kind of weird. His whole thing is just that like he sings, I guess. He's
right?
He's a big jolly dancing guy. They kind of try to play up a little bit at the start that he's like a ladies' man ish, and then he gets like embarrassed by Frankenstein. Because he's, like, kind of hitting on the one mummy woman that, like, I don't even think has any dialogue.
Yeah, I guess his whole thing is that he, likes girls.
I guess.
Likes mummy girls.
Which, yeah, I guess that's about right. But, like, let's talk about some of the better bits. In particular, Wayne, my favorite, Steve Buscemi's werewolf, where they could have done literally anything for the werewolf. But what they decided on was just he's gonna be a overworked dad for the whole movie.
And it's so good. They play it out so well. I thought you were gonna say a different one as your favorites. That's funny.
Oh no! What was the one you were thinking of?
I just assumed that you were gonna say Frankenstein's. It's just
Frankenstein's is very good.
It was really good. He just not just. No BS is absolutely just not gonna look at fire. And it's no, really fire bad. And that's just it. But seeing Frankenstein look at somebody and not say I don't like fire or not say fire is bad, he says fire bad. Yeah. And it's the funniest thing to me every time it happens.
Because it's so nonchalant. It's so just like tossed on there on top. It's like on top of whatever else. He's having full conversations with people. Someone will bring up fire and he'll be like, no, yeah, fire bad.
Yeah, it's it's not like a punchline or anything. No, yeah. That's why I love it.
It's so weird, and this movie does so many fantastic little horror movie things throughout it. Not where it's like totally riffing on the genre and making great jokes out of that and having as much visual humor as they can pack into everything. Mm-hmm. Or like even with bits of the dialogue, like I don't remember the exact phrase, but there's some sort of, instead of saying like oh my god or oh my gosh or whatever, Mavis says like holy rabies or whatever.
Yeah.
Which, fun little fact with this, September 28th is National Rabies Day, so they released the movie on National Rabies Day in 2012.
That's obnoxious.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
Not to start off too quick, but I was just looking at like the IMDb of Hotel Transylvania and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
they made so much money off of this.
Yeah.
I thought it was super under the radar. I didn't
No,
I couldn't tell you who's watched it, but it has it made almost 500 million at the box office.
Yeah. Yeah, it made enough to warrant 2 sequels and a spin-off TV show.
That's
so far
nuts.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, and I feel like this isn't talked about, but yeah, it's like a franchise maker.
That really is it's. I mean, obviously it's a franchise, but and not only that, but each movie made more money than the last is what I'm now seeing.
Mm-hmm.
What?
I don't know if they've announced it or not, but I would not be surprised to see if we get a 4th installment in this already.
It went 350 million for the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Very respectable.
Yeah.
473 million for the second one, which we're in Pixar territory now.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one, 530 million. All of which having a budget around 80 million.
I think we don't see it as much because it's not a big critical thing. People don't rave about these movies much. They don't really get... Did it even get... It didn't even... I don't think it even got an Oscar nomination for animated feature.
I don't think so.
Looking on their Wikipedia, it had... At the Annies, it was nominated for Best Animated Feature, Character Design in an Animated Feature, Directing in an Animated Feature, Music in an Animated Feature, Production Design, Voice Acting, and Editorial in an Animated Feature.
Did it win any?
Didn't win any of them.
Not even voice acting?
Golden Globes won Best Animated... Sorry, not won. Nominated Best Animated Feature Film, Visual Effects Society, Outstanding Animation in an Animated Feature Motion Picture, Outstanding Animated Character in an Animated Feature. Still nominated, didn't win. As far as I can tell, the only award that it's won, Favorite Voice from an Animated Movie, Adam Sandler,
Woo!
Kids' Choice Awards 2012 got the win. So the only one that matters. But
oh my gosh, the only one that actually matters. I'm really glad you saved the best for last. I'd also like to point out, we, as a community, as a cartoon-centric weekly podcast and listeners, should gather around, right, and absolutely call out everybody for not letting this win an award, and maybe we can retroactively get it an award. You know what I mean?
it deserves one. I'm trying to find the 2012.
While you're doing that...
Okay. This isn't even too bad of a lineup of movies. This deserves to be nominated at least. But 2012 Oscars, Wreck-It Ralph.
Nope.
Pirates, Band of Misfits,
Nope.
Paranorman, Frankenweenie, and Brave were the nominees. Brave won it.
Oh my
for
god.
Best Animated Feature. Yeah, right?
Okay, I like Brave a lot, but out of all the years, guys, this was your time. This was your chance.
Yeah, this is
when
the
Pixar
one where they
put
could've
out
swooped
Brave.
in.
This was your chance to swoop in and take
Yeah.
it. Maybe the year
Paranorman couldn't get it. Pirates, Band of Misfits couldn't get it. Wreck-It Ralph couldn't get it. Frankenweenie couldn't get it. Brave did. I think Hotel Transylvania probably could have had a shot, if anything, just for how gorgeous this movie is.
I mean, Paranorman's pretty great.
Paranorman's really good. Paranorman, out of all of those, Paranorman deserves the win.
Yeah.
I'm saying Hotel Transylvania could have at least gotten nominated.
I see what you're saying. Since Paranorman doesn't have Adam Sandler, we'd still give the...
Well, yeah, out of respect.
Yeah, okay. I was just making sure. Or at least just slime Adam Sandler. I don't even care if this is the Kids' Choice
At the
Award.
Oscars.
Yeah. I want Adam Sandler to walk up for an award at the Oscars and still just get green slime poured all over him.
But it's not even it's not the studio that set it up. It's just Kevin James and the rest of his team all just hid metal buckets of slime under their chairs, and when he got called up with them, they were all up standing behind, but suspiciously with their hands behind their backs. And then as he's accepting it, they all just
I'll hand
slime him.
Anybody. I'm sure everybody that goes to the Oscars is now listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that's willing, I'll give you $40 cold hard cash if you run up whenever Adam Sandler gets an award next and just dump slime all over him.
I'm not super liquid right now, but I'll give you 20. So there's your offer. $60 to slime Adam Sandler for us on national television.
That's 20 Canadian dollars and 40 US dollars, by the way.
So that's like 15 US dollars. Yeah, our dollar is not better. That doesn't help.
What specifically have we not really talked about yet? I feel
well,
like
the plot.
Yeah, so the
or
entire
anything that happens
or
in the
just
movie.
the whole movie.
Mhm.
Let's get the ball rolling. I'll just give like a little brief what the movie's about. I guess I won't spoil it cuz I know it did well in the box office. I'm assuming that's all very small kids, you know what I mean?
That's the thing is I feel like this was a big we'll take the family to see it, and then a bunch of people just kind of like pushed it off as like, oh, it's a kids movie.
Yeah, and I really don't think I know anybody that watched this movie. So,
I was
here's
probably
me
the
telling
one.
you, watch it. Anyways.
Yeah, if you haven't at this point, do, because we should like run over the whole movie, because there's gonna be a bunch of like little bits and stuff that I'm gonna remember as we're running over like the plot of it. I think for most of the discussion.
It feels like. Anyway, let's just get into it. So basically, Dracula has a daughter. He's overprotective of her. He also hates humans because of something that happened in his past.
We don't know at the start, which I think is a good way to do it. I like
Yeah.
that they didn't do the like how Finding Nemo immediately starts off the movie with like death, tragedy. Like,
Yeah.
they hold it off.
Not even
For a
that,
well
but we
enough
don't
reveal.
even know that that's the reason he hates humans.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't know that he hates humans because of something terrible that happened. We just know that's something terrible has happened and he also hates humans.
Or at least we get the implication that it's like, oh, well, he's Dracula. It makes sense that Dracula would not like humans because,
Exactly.
like, you know, Dracula's been a book for a couple hundred years. The first movie was in, like, the 30s. Like, they're all cultural icons enough that you get what they're about before going into the movie.
Precisely. So anyway, then they fast forward. His daughter is now 118 years old, which I'm assuming equates to 18 years old.
Yeah, that's their whole
that's their
implication
thing.
on it. Yeah, it's just a good vampire joke.
Yeah, and they nod. She's like, I'm not 86 years old anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anyway, and now
so his whole thing is that he's built a hotel.
Oh yeah.
For monsters to come to so that they can be safe of humans. So that they can all just go there, and I don't really understand. They don't try at all to make it clear how any of it works or where the like monsters are coming from and why they don't just live there in general. And it's not like it's very much just like, oh, it's just like this is our MacGuffin to be able to say like, oh, well, all the monsters are in one place living together away from humans, so that like when a human shows up, it's all the monsters instead of just like Dracula's castle.
Exactly.
But they do have good setups there where it's is it the zombies that build whatever creatures it is that build the hotel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, whatever it is that build the hotel. When he's like explaining it, he's like, "Oh, don't set any bonfires, no fireworks," because he doesn't want. That's their way of like getting it to not be seen, and their whole setup for why no human would ever go there is because it's like surrounded by haunted woods, and there's like graveyards to the east of it, and the graveyards are full of zombies. So any human that would try to come close would be like scared off. I thought that was a good little like fun piece of world building for why it's like, oh, well, why, how hasn't a human just randomly shown up there? And it's like, oh, well, we like kind of put security out.
Yeah, security in the form of intimidation.
Yeah, exactly.
And also the entrance,
fun little
like closes off, like it's like an underground entrance.
Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you, because I for some reason was explaining the movie and didn't mention the hotel.
It's in Transylvania, yeah.
But to continue, the daughter is now 118, which is basically 18, and she feels like she is old enough to explore and like maybe just leave the hotel because she has developed an interest in like human life, basically, or just an interest in like what might lie outside of the gates that she's lived inside of.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
And this is...
It felt like the same setup as like something like Rapunzel.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
totally. Yeah, it's a little less of a I don't know if nihilistic is the right term, but nihilistic Rapunzel, where it's like instead of it being oh, you're physically trapped here because the old woman from Rapunzel, don't remember her relation to Rapunzel, but point is, where she's like, you literally can't leave. This is Dracula just being afraid for his daughter and being an overprotective dad.
Exactly.
So I like that they have the device of all of the reasons that Mavis goes out and does all of these things is because of Dracula, but not in a like, oh, I'm mad at my dad way. It's because like she found the postcard from Hawaii, and then like his downfall is because he tries to keep her too sheltered in the end. Which that's jumping ahead a little bit, but point is, he says to her that, yeah, you can go out and explore. There's a human, I won't let you go to a huge city, but you can go to this human village that's just beyond the woods. You know, not too far away from the castle, but then you can experience what human life is.
Exactly.
And she goes to this village, and it's all these humans that are like trying to attack her, and there's a great reveal when you slowly start to realize that it's actually just all zombies who are the workers of the hotel, dressed up as humans pretending to attack her. And the zombies are such good comedic relief every time. I love the little bits of like where one of their heads will fall off and they'll just kind of have to deal with it, or one of them gets like really angry and tries to swing a pitchfork and like stabs another one in the side of the head. It's all just good little bits of the whole point is just to get Mavis to go back home and say like, oh, I don't want to actually be around humans. They're all evil because Dracula like built a fake town. But then he ends up, all the zombies through some sort of Rube Goldberg-esque machine of them messing up, light all of themselves on fire and then start going to walk back towards the hotel. And while they're on fire, it attracts the attention of Johnny, who is Andy Samberg. Just weird little backpacker post-college.
Like he's one of those like, like you're only blah 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 once, you better live it up. You know what I mean? Like one of those guys.
Yeah.
Goes to all
the guy
the
that
festivals.
Instead of he goes to music festivals. He's big into EDM. Instead of going to college, he's like, I'm gonna take a year off and explore the world, and then that's his whole thing.
Exactly.
And he ends up going to the hotel, and the whole setup of the movie is basically there's a human in the hotel now, and Dracula has to deal with that, and that Mavis, his daughter, and the human fall in love, and it's him having to... At first, he just wants to get rid of Johnny and like get him out of the hotel as fast as possible, while also hiding from all the other monsters that there's a human in the hotel, because the monsters don't know that humans aren't evil anymore, because it's Dracula's the only one who's been telling them that to like reinforce that they should all be afraid. So there's a lot of like, it's from that point on just kind of becomes, it all takes place within the one location, which I like that it's not like too big in scale of a movie. Like it's all within the hotel until like right at the end when they go into the town and like face humanity.
I think it's kind of like, oh man, do we like just, I don't know, spoiler warning I guess, but
yeah, we can talk about that, dude. It's like,
it doesn't matter,
7 years old.
I think it's almost, I don't know, it's funny to me that I was trying to like check through my brain to make sure this is actually true, but the entire thing is how what's the daughter's name again? I'm blanking.
Mavis.
Mavis doesn't, I mean, she just wants to get out of the house, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, this human is kind of everything she wants to become, and in that they end up falling in love.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the movie, Dracula finally accepts that, you know, sometimes he has to just let her go, do her own thing. But they never, the entire movie, she never gets to leave the house, even up until the end, right?
Technically, yes, but that's the whole sequels are that, because the end of this movie is
I get that
they're
it's
allowed to be
but
in love and humans are. Yeah, it is a little funny that if this movie didn't make $500 million or whatever, that
probably would have included.
It would have just ended with like, yep, you're free to leave the house, and then they never do.
I just thought it was interesting.
But yeah, that's like more or less the setup. And I don't think we need to run through. I wouldn't be able to specifically run through most of the rest of the movie because it's all just.
There's a lot of plot points. There feels like there's a lot of places where I'm like, am I getting to the climax now? So that might be why it didn't. It's weird pacing. I wouldn't say it's bad pacing. But
Yeah.
it isn't like just like a cut and dry 3-arc structure, is it? To me, I couldn't tell you it.
I don't think that it doesn't have like the 3-arc structure as much as there's a lot of times where they just kind of have scenes in there because it's like, oh well, we can get like good jokes out of this, and those scenes work, and I think it's like funny, but there definitely could have like, because it's not that it's long even, like these movies are only like 90 minutes long or something, like 100, and it doesn't feel like it drags on. It's just very bit heavy kind of, where it's like they didn't really have to, like that whole scene where they're in the sauna.
There's multiple points where it feels like there are multiple points where it feels like a climax. Let me try to think. There's when the dad finally accepts him, but there's almost a point where Dracula and Jonathan, right?
Yeah.
Jonathan like understand each other more. Whenever he confesses that his wife died from humans and stuff like that. And then that kind of feels like a climax. And then the whole kiss scene happens, which starts up like a whole nother plot point.
I think
no.
It would have been easy for them to be like, oh, well, we'll climax the movie with Dracula being like, all right, I accept the two of you being together or whatever. But they like do at least acknowledge the fact that they're like, well, there's still this full hotel full of monsters that all think humans are evil.
Yeah.
So they have to wrap that up, and then they go out into the real world and figure out that like humans actually love monsters now. And there's a lot of good little bits of like Frankenstein out in the real world, and they're like, oh my god, your Frankenstein looks so real. Or like Dracula talking to the guy, and he's like, oh man, your Dracula impression's so good.
I guess there's just a lot of points in time where it feels like it's like a realization, like a scene that was literally just created to have a character have like a big realization. Like it's like Jonathan and Dracula realize maybe each other aren't so terrible, they understand each other's motives, blah blah blah. Then Dracula realizes how his daughter's in love and that he should stop babying her. Then Dracula and the gang realize that humans aren't necessarily terrible people. But I guess maybe because it's broken up into multiple scenes that it feels so like gray to me. On like,
I don't know, a little bit strange, but I don't think that takes away from it. Because
no, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's like a bad thing.
While you're in the movie, it's just so like fun, and there's so many weird little things with it.
For sure.
That I think it makes up for any of those where it feels kind of odd watching through it.
Yeah, just to clarify, I don't think it's bad. I'm just saying it's weird that it doesn't have. It just doesn't feel like a straight up 3-arc structure to me. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, I just kind of want to talk about now some of the weird little, I couldn't figure out a way to fit it in, but the weird little Halloween/horror versions of normal things that they play with in this movie a lot. The one that had me losing my mind was the wake up call. How it's all of the telephones are they're like skeleton head, like it's a skull.
My gosh.
And then it's the bone for like the telephone. But the wake up call is just that the skull starts screaming at the top of its lungs. And they show it with it's what's his name? Wayne, the wolf, is lying in bed, and because he just has a seemingly endless amount of children, they're all just like finally settling down to go to sleep, and he's like finally ready to kind of sleep, and you see his eyes are like bloodshot, and then all of a sudden the skull on his bedside table just starts screeching at him.
That's so funny to me.
And then when he picks up the phone being like, I didn't call for a wake-up call, who did this? And the skull's like, oh, well, Dracula said that everyone gets a wake-up call so they can be ready for Mavis's birthday. And then he's like, oh, slams it back down, and then like it holds for like a couple seconds, and then just starts yelling again. And he's like, how the hell do I snooze this thing? Like losing his, but just still playing the just overworked dad for the whole movie. and then the skull like stops yelling for a second to be like, "You can't snooze me," and then just goes back to yelling.
That's so funny.
Super weird.
Also just the skulls were so funny. Like the ones that were attached to the doors, and Dracula's just walking
the
down the
shrunken
hall,
heads,
and they were all like, what did they say? Like,
it's the "Do Not Disturb" sign on the hotel door.
yeah, but do they actually?
But instead
just
of it
say,
being a "Do Not Disturb" sign, yeah, it's instead of it just being a "Do Not Disturb" sign, he's walking down the hallway, and all these shrunken heads are going, "Do not disturb, do not disturb, do not disturb." Like the whole.
They're like, clean up this room.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, is he walks by the one, and then it's like the maid, who is like the witch, is like walking down with like the cart of the cleaning cart, like in a normal hotel, and then one of the heads just goes, "Yo, maid, clean up this room." Like,
It's so classic to me. I think. I guess I didn't even realize whenever I first started talking to you when we were first starting this episode, I didn't realize, like, don't get me wrong, I loved the bits and I laughed hysterically at all of them pretty much, but I didn't realize that that's really what made this special. But I really think now that I'm like looking back at it and analyzing the movie, I have to agree that that's probably one of the strong suits for this whole thing. Is it?
and I think
Like, is that apparent in the second movie also?
I think, yeah, that's like consistent throughout the whole thing, and I think that's because of the way it's animated.
Yeah.
That these jokes are like us explaining them, you might be like, "Oh, that's kind of like a little funny," but the way everything looks as they're doing it all makes it so much better, and like the expressions that they manage to pull off and just the ways that the characters are contorting takes any joke from being like, "That's a little funny," to just hysterical. And any of the like there's a couple points where right at the start is the first time he does it, where Dracula is like singing a lullaby, and it's the "If that mockingbird won't sing, daddy's gonna," and then he just like
shrieks at the camera.
Just shrieks at the camera and yells. And it's like, that's funny, where in any movie they would have him like, you know, they're like, "Oh, I get it, Dracula's gonna be mad," but instead of it just being Dracula is mad and yelling, they have his whole face contorts to the point where he almost doesn't look like the same character. The whole screen goes in like the hard red tint. His eyes go bloodshot red. Like, they add so many little layers on top of it to just how it looks and how all the characters,
Yeah.
like how all of the jokes are executed is so good and timed so perfectly.
I always enjoy animation that kind of not necessarily throws continuity out the window, but like doesn't, like, allows for some gray area for it. Like, for instance, Frankenstein falls apart on a multitude of occasions in this, and then like the next scene he's just back to normal, you know what I mean? And you're like, I don't know if you had enough time to put all your body back together there.
Yeah, like
but it just doesn't
when there's
really
the
matter
whole
that much.
the swimming pool scene, and he goes to do the belly flop, and he like lands in the pool and he hits, and then you just see after he hits, all his body parts just like slowly start to drift away from him in the pool.
Exactly.
And it's just,
then the
it's
next scene,
timed
he's
so
back
funny.
to...
Yeah. And it's timed so funny that it's like, in concept, it's like, oh, that's funny. Where it's like, because Frankenstein, this one is like able to fall apart so easily.
Whereas for Pixar, it's like if Wall-E has a scratch on him, that scratch is going to be in the entire movie.
Yeah, and it's like, that's
You know
a
what I
different kind of impressive, where it's like, all of those things make up to be like gorgeous looking movies, but these are such a different type of
Exactly.
gorgeous.
I agree.
I'm trying to think some of the other like good examples of that, because it's a movie filled with, that's the whole thing, is it's funny jokes that are executed so well that it just makes them like better.
I don't...
Even to the point of, there's things where it's not a joke, where it's just like the way Dracula moves around in a lot of scenes, it's just inherently funny. Just by the way where he'll just have those like really quick like darting movements, or he'll like kind of slink his way through things, where they don't establish joints for him for a lot of those movements, where it's, you clearly get whenever he's moving and they want him to be like jointed and normal, that it'll look like that, but they'll totally break the model and they'll bend it as much as they can, which is crazy that they did this in CG, because all these principles easy to do in 2D animation where you're having to redraw each frame, but when it's moving models like this, like I'm pretty sure there was a lot of new technology developed specifically because of this movie, because the way
And that's
Genndy
so
wanted to
cool.
bend these characters, they would be like, oh, well, we'll just try and have, like, the machine figure it out when we want, like, Dracula to... I think the example that I remember reading was he goes to, like, stand up, like, to look intimidating, where he gets a couple feet taller.
Yeah.
And when they do that, they try to bend him, but then, like, the cape physics mess up, and somehow now his cape is, like, stuck in the back of his head or whatever. And, like, all of these things, it just didn't work, and they had to totally redesign how they went at animating this movie, which I think is fascinating and not enough people talk about or, like, attempt to use again.
Or respect that this is, like, kind of uncharted territories, and this is like a paving, like, you know what I mean? It's like not entrepreneur. What am I thinking of? It's like a trailblazer. There we go.
Thank you. Yeah, there you go. Like, did you ever watch the Popeye animation test that they put out for that movie?
I didn't.
Oh my god. Everyone who is watching this, like, stop right now and go watch. It's like 2 minutes of footage that not to be used for the movie, it's not like it's a scene where they're like, oh, we'll slightly change it. It's literally just, here's what I want my Popeye movie to look like. Because Genndy was supposed to make a CG Popeye movie. And that is, I am still so viscerally sad that got canned. And it looks gorgeous. And it is that for the whole thing, where it's all of the things that happen in it. It's like, sure, that's funny, but it's made so much funnier by the way it looks and the way all the characters move. And they have there's so much more life to it, and it's so interesting. It's something that we do not see enough with, well, animation in general today, because, like, feature films don't get 2D animation in them.
Like, almost never.
The last 2D animated movie I can think of, well, Princess and the Frog,
Yeah, I was about to say that.
but technically Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
Okay. But yeah, okay.
But that's not like that was not pushing in the same way that
That's not
Princess
really,
and the Frog would push.
Exactly.
Here's what an animated like there are shots in Princess and the Frog that are incredible, where it's like the dresses like swaying in like a ballroom dance, whatever. That it's like, it blows my mind that someone animated that by hand, and like it looks incredible, but it's just not like, it's not something that we see anymore. And with that means that a lot of these techniques of animation that made up 2D animation, we don't really see used as much in the mainstream animated movies that we get anymore, which I think leads to why I think these are so special and so different, is that it's just like a 3D version of like a Looney Tunes cartoon, using all those like crazy Tex Avery techniques, and like, where it's like, sure, in any animated movie it might be funny to see a character, you know, get hit on the head with a mallet, but the way they look in Looney Tunes and the way everything around them moves makes it exponentially funnier and makes it work so much better. And I think that's where this movie shines so much, that it is like, I kind of put it on last night expecting it to be something that I'd like kind of have in the background as I'm doing things to like refresh myself, but there were so many times where I found myself just stopping and being like, I just want to watch this sequence because it looks so interesting and it's so like engaging visually.
I think Looney Tunes is such a perfect, like, that's literally what it is. It's like a 3D animated Looney Tunes storyline. To me, I think it does. Yeah, I think that's you hit the nail on the head.
Thank you. I try my best when hammering nails, metaphorically.
Not as much actual, just
not
figuratively.
As much, yeah.
I feel like,
I think more or less we've kind of covered what we want to cover. Was there any fun?
I have a little closing remark, I guess, on my end. Watch the movie, then watch the seasons and give me a recap, because I don't have time to watch the other two movies. And then give me a recap, because I don't have time to watch the other two, but I'll listen to you guys tell me about it. And you could do that in the email at cartoonoverloadshow@gmail.com. Listen,
nice. Good
if
plug.
you like Adam Sandler, you like Selena Gomez, and you like the band LMFAO,
and Genndy Tartakovsky.
Oh, and the actual parts about the movie.
Yeah.
Then, I totally recommend this show. Movie. I don't know why I keep saying show.
I wouldn't recommend the show.
Is the show good? Have you seen the show at all?
I've seen bits of the show.
And you don't recommend it?
No,
Okay.
it's fine.
No Adam Sandler?
It's very like, no, it's well, I don't think so.
That's
Like
a question.
90% sure, no. But the bits of the show that I have seen, it's the whole show is like, oh, all of the monsters have kids, and then it's all about all the kids.
That's
and it's like,
terrible.
yeah, it's not super interesting, and it reminds me of like, I had seen, whenever I saw the first episode of it, I was like, oh, this seems like something that I would have seen exclusively on days when I was homesick from school, because they would only play it at like 1 in the afternoon.
And you're so sick that you couldn't like stand up to change the channel.
Yeah, exactly.
To
So
the
you're
other
just like,
cartoon.
oh, I guess this is what I'm watching.
Yeah.
But also, it's not like, it's not grating enough that you're like, ugh, this really sucks. It's just kind of like, I guess this is how I'm spending the next 20 minutes of my life.
And every cast member is different, by the way. In case you're curious, I don't think there's a single.
Yeah, I don't think
person.
there's any. I'd be surprised if they had like a cameo appearance, even if it's in like a first episode where they have
Like
Dracula be like
Fuller House.
Yeah, where they're like, oh, have fun at school, and then they just never see him again.
He's like, oh, I'm Adam Sandler. Catch you guys
Yeah.
later.
Take my check and leave. But I don't even think that happens.
No, yeah, but
Yeah.
I do recommend the movie. Go watch it. It's epic.
And I haven't seen number 3. I have seen number 2. For all we know, we'll end up doing an episode on 2 or 3 later in the future if we feel like it. If someone else feels like it, we'll see.
Maybe we'll just do another episode on 1.
Maybe we'll do
Maybe this will just turn into a Hotel
Cartoon
Transylvania podcast.
Cartoon Overload episode 8, Hotel Transylvania,
Again.
Game of the Year edition Redux.
Yeah.
2.7.
Final mix.
Final mix, yeah, whatever. Kingdom Hearts bullshit.
Excuse me? Anyways.
I said it is that Kingdom Hearts bullshit, not Kingdom Hearts is bullshit. I
Okay.
like Kingdom Hearts,
Good.
but Lord, their naming system is a mess. Well,
Alright.
like, yes, but not in the way they intended it to be. I'm not going to get into that discussion right now. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's another episode.
That's a whole other podcast, dude.
Where can people find you, Johnny?
I am on Twitter and Instagram at Johnny Hayes, JOHHNYHAZE. I make art. I tweet about Muppets. I tweet about other things, but I like to keep the bit going that I only tweet about Muppets, because that's like a good portion of what I like. They announced the new Hollywood Studios logo for like Hollywood Studios, like the Disney park in Florida.
Yeah.
And like in the O's, there's like BB-8 and Woody and
That's
what
epic.
else would it be? There's like another character in an O, but none of them were a Muppet, and that makes me so viscerally afraid for what could happen to Muppet Vision 3D, which is one of the best films. I'll end the sentence there. One of the best films ever made is Muppet Vision 3D.
Well,
But I'll stand by that.
you know what, Johnny?
It makes me really afraid for that.
You know what, Johnny?
What?
I know you quit a few days ago,
Yeah.
and you've been a fantastic guest.
Thank
so
you.
I was wondering if you'd like your job back to be
I
co-host.
would like my job back.
Okay, well, welcome back to the team, guys.
Thank you
I'll
for
see
welcoming
you guys
me back to the team.
Next episode, we'll
Carl, you did not tell people where they could find you.
Oh yeah.
Carl,
Maybe
I
I
think I'm
should
going to have to
quit.
fire you from Cartoon Overload.
You could find me at KarlJacobs_ on both Twitter and Instagram. If you're spelling Carl with a C, you're supporting hate
No
crimes.
friend to me. Oh.
Oh yeah.
That's very different.
You can
Okay.
also find Cartoon Overload on Twitter at Toon Overload, TOONOVERLOAD, and Toon Overload Show on Instagram. I'm not going to tell you how to spell show. You got that. I believe in you.
I believe in them too.
Thanks so much. We don't have an outro, so let my guest, Johnny Hayes, do the outro.
Subscribe to our podcast, blah, blah, blah.
Thank you.